All right. If you are just joining us, then you are early. All right, because we are getting ready for a program by Shags Shagrin, and that's going to start in a bit. If you are watching this from the YouTube page, then you are probably going to see about 10 minutes of material before we actually get going. But if you watch it from our page on our site at siliconvalleyrotary.com, you'll see it starting at the right time. So you know. All right, and let me see. So, Mark, we don't have any viewers at the moment. Let's talk a little bit about Luis. Right.
Okay.
And I need to invite Tracy back in. Let's see.
Okay.
Let me get that done real quick.
There you are.
Sorry. I need more coffee.
I'm going to press the mute button. All good. Awesome. All right. So yeah, so we're recording at the minute. This will be on the YouTube version of this, but not on the version that is on the site. So at any rate, let's talk a little bit about kind of some upcoming program possibilities. And Mark, you have a friend in Florida who is someone you introduced me to when I was down there for the Florida conference last year, named Luis Perez, and he'll be coming up to Michigan to present.
Right.
Tell a little bit about who he is and what he does, and then that we can kind of talk through the idea of having him present to the club.
Luis Perez is a guy I met in 2009 as an Apple Distinguished Educator. Luis's story is quite amazing. He Dominican background, Florida, New York, New Jersey, worked with the Quakers, so he has this very Zen-like kind of attitude. But story is, Luis one day went in to see the doctor and said, "I need a new prescription, man." And they sat him down and said, "No, you don't. You have retinal degeneration. You're going blind." And Luis then had to come to terms with that. At the same time, Luis started to study and now has a PhD in special education. He is a master of universal design for learning and inclusive design. There is nobody with more knowledge about how to use assistive devices and how those devices can help someone with a disability. And because he speaks of it from a first person's perspective, it is amazingly powerful. Luis is going to be up here, like I said, for McCall. He has worked with doctors, I believe it's Todd Rose, with the creator of Universal Design for Learning. He does webinars. He's actually, right after McCall, I have a day with him to brainstorm, and then he's off to Dubai to do some work with the university there. So he is a very busy man, a very enlightening man, and an absolute inspiration for me and my work. So yeah, having him speak about persons with disabilities on one hand, but also to talk about universal design and how that works both within education and the entire world, it would be fabulous.
Yeah, I love the idea that we'd get him kind of in a space where he could be talking about those kinds of things, especially the two, right? Because I think there are probably a lot of people in businesses who who could benefit from hearing his perspective on universal design, getting kind of things more out there for anybody. So if you would go ahead and contact Luis and let him know. And there's any number of ways we could do it. We could do a hangout like we do now. We could plan on recording something while we're in Detroit. Either way. Two more people on the screen. That's awesome. Chris Cochran, and I will say this to the five of us currently here. Chris just got a major recognition. All right, so a sequence that he shot for a show in the early '80s was recognized by and tell me again the group, Chris. That this is like the Directors Association. Which group is this?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Can you see me? Oh, yeah. It's actually by the Association of Screen Cinematographers, which is the premier group of guys who do what I do. And a few years ago, the actual sequence was shot in the mid-1980s, aired in the late 80s. It's part of a show called Crime Story. It was the opening, and they voted it one of the top 5 most iconic television show openings of the entire 20th century. I can't believe it. I'm just going, wow, cool. It's going to be archived in the Library of Congress, apparently. So,
that's so cool.
That means future generations can take part from our wisdom. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to get a couple of our hangouts into the Library of Congress? We should do them so well that they're going to go, yeah, we got to keep these for future generations. You may laugh.
That so falls into the category of why not, right?
Why not?
Awesome.
Let's do something that's so...
Now, is there like a tool in Hangouts to applaud? I mean, isn't there like something where you're clapping or something like that?
Nah, not at all. But you can say
man.
Oh, yeah.
Google Effects app. All right, so let's see. We use the app. Downloading that app. Let me see.
No headwear. Let's see.
I know. I can suddenly be a graduate, which is like, there you go. But,
there we go. Sounds.
Yeah, all right, so let's just that. Now we got pirate. That's it. And where did you find that?
When you click on effects, just scroll over from the top arrow over where the other.
It's
sounds. Got it. That'll be a part of Hangouts from now forward for the club. That's for sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Shags, let's get set up for you. You are the man for this one. Said, very nice, Chris. All right. And so Chris and Mark and Tracy and me. All right. Shag's going to speak in the 15 to 18 minute category on this, right? And then we are going to jump in with questions. So each of us needs to be kind of like on for a question on that. Let's make that a part of how we make it work. Yeah. All right. So we got about 3 minutes to go before we formally start. We're ahead of schedule, which is new, I'll just say. But yeah, Shags, any quick wisdom for the group before we get going?
Was everything okay here? The video good?
Yeah, hearing you fine. We're actually recording at the moment, but when we put it in the meeting, right, then I'll have it start at whatever point right before we start, right?
And then
which could be, of course, at the point that Chris introduces his Mountain Dew to the audience. That could be the point.
No.
I also want to make sure my screen sharing
Never
is working.
Mountain Dew. You remember where I live.
I saw the color. I made an assumption. How culturally inappropriate. Okay, yeah. So Shags, you start speaking, and let's make sure your screen sharing is doing.
Is it sharing right now? Because
yes, it is.
Says, okay.
It says you're 55 years old. How old are you? 106 or what? You know.
Pretty much.
He says I'll be 106.
Yeah.
So I stopped sharing because we'll go to that when the program starts. When I start the program.
Nice glass collection behind you. I like that. Yeah.
Sharing as you were, of course, we're seeing. Was that a PowerPoint?
Yes. No,
okay.
It's a PDF.
PDF. All good. So we're seeing like the PDF as part of the Acrobat screen, right? So if there's, if you want to make that bigger or whatever you want to do, all good. But actually try that out right now. Let's try that before we get going. So share and then kind of pull the slide out to full screen.
Let me see if I can do that. Okay.
Chris, I may mute you from the ongoing Canada Dry commercial that's going on over there.
Yeah. Right here too. I muted. Thank you very much.
Good man.
And here we go. We'll even do this. Ta-da!
Better?
Okay, Shags looks good. Looks good like that. Yeah. Excellent. All right. All right, cool. Okay, any other questions from the peanut gallery before we put Shags on? Shags, remember, this is being recorded. Try not to say anything that would embarrass the club.
Oh, that's pretty difficult.
All righty. Okay, you guys ready? Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna pause a bit to kind of get that pause going, and then I'm gonna start things off. And Chris, go ahead and mute yourself over there. Glasses. Welcome everybody. This is the program for the meeting of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley for the week of March the 2nd. And this week our speaker is our own Shags Shagrin, who I will let introduce himself because that is the kind of crazy and fun story that is our program. But as always, we will remind you that at the end of the program, we're going to ask that you go to the end there and to do two things: to add a comment through the discuss or discuss, however it's pronounced, system at the bottom. That may involve creating a little account, not a big deal, all good. But we'd love to have you take part in the discussion. The second thing is to fill out the survey that allows you to kind of register your attendance. For our members, this is critical. For our guests, it is something we really hope we'll get because we'd like to be able to thank you via email for having taken part in our program. So with that, I am going to say welcome everybody to this. There's a wonderful kind of talk coming from the never ever ever boring Mr. Shags Shagrin. Let's hear it for Shags.
Thanks, Rushton, and welcome everyone to the meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. Rushton asked me to do this program because I've been in Rotary a really long time. Officially since 1982, but unofficially much longer, as you will learn. This is actually my 5th Rotary Club. My first one was in Ohio, invited to join by my father when I had moved back to town to get married and settle down, work in the family business of sorts. It was really a brokerage firm, but I joined his practice. Then when I moved to California, I was over at the Rossmore Club. They were a senior club, which was rather interesting. I was one of the youngest members there and served as president, as you'll see. And then as my Wednesday afternoons started to get busier and busier, I couldn't make the meetings as often. And a new club, a new generations club, was formed in the district over here, 5160 at the time, where I'm living, in Walnut Creek. So they needed somebody to serve as past president. I decided to go over there. It was a Tuesday evening club, and my Ohio club was a Tuesday evening club, so it was a really good fit. I had that Tuesday evening Rotary bug that was always pushing me out the door, and it was really great to get back into that routine. And then again, business got a little bit crazy, and I needed to have those Tuesday evenings for webinars. And I joined the Rotary E-Club of the Southwest. And that was a fabulous experience. And then when Rushton decided that this was going to be an even better and more fabulous experience, I came over to be in my 5th Rotary Club. So it's really a delight to be here. So I'm going to jump over to screen sharing and bring my program notes up. My program slide, screen share, and here we go. And I've got another thing to share toward the end of the program. So I call this my 55 years in Rotary, because essentially when I look back on my entire history of learning what Rotary is all about, it came out to 55 years, as you will see. You can see here on the screen I've served as past president twice, so there are plenty of newbies in this club that can serve way ahead of me before I even have to consider that again. The first time was pre-internet, and the second time was during the internet, so that was a really different experience as well. Now, the first time I ever met my Uncle Harry, my great Uncle Harry, I was told he came by when I was in the bath, so you can see how I looked with hair on the bright parts of my body. Well, Uncle Harry was wearing his Rotary lapel pin, and I'd never seen one before, and it really caught my eye, as you can see. Usually I get laughter in this, so with everybody muted, we're really not going to have that same effect, but that's okay. Now, a little bit about my Uncle Harry. He had joined the Youngstown Rotary Club, which was the number 137th club in the Rotary International World. They just celebrated their 100th anniversary. So he was a charter member, and he was one of those that was a stickler for attendance, perfect attendance. Now, remember, this is back in the day when Rotary only allowed 7 days before a meeting and 7 days after a meeting to attend another club's meeting in order to keep your attendance current. And with only 137 clubs in the country, there weren't that many around that you could travel to easily like we can today. And of course, there were no e-clubs. Well, Uncle Harry made every meeting. And he was actually working on his 50th year of perfect attendance, the very first person, the very first Rotarian to be approaching 50 years of perfect attendance. And he got sick. Was taken to the hospital, and the club's really in a turmoil. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We got to make sure that Harry gets his perfect attendance. So the board decided what we're going to do is we're going to shift our meeting place to the hospital for a few weeks. And they would wheel him down in the wheelchair, he'd attend the meeting, and they'd take him back up to his room. And he died in 1964 with just over 49 and a half years as a Rotarian. So that sort of set the standard for the Shagrins that came into Rotary after that, which included his son, Harry Shagrin Jr., and my father, who was invited to join Rotary. Well, flash forward, I was born in 1956. And 3 years later, on December 23rd, something really interesting happened. And this is right after, as you can see, Tom Landry, who played for the Giants, looked pretty much the same as when he was coaching, except for the hat. It was right after he accepted his coaching job, and it was right after William Shea was awarded the last franchise for the Continental Baseball League, those of you that may remember that in the history of baseball. And even more importantly, it was right before Ringo Starr got his first drum set in 1959. What was that thing that happened? My dad joined Rotary, and I was age 3.5. And this is pretty much what I look like at about that age. Still have the same sparkle to the blue eyes, and oh, there's the beginning of the gap teeth. And of course, my Rotary shirt, which is a mock-up. And these are two books that I still have in my library, some of which I have scanned and posted on the internet for our Google page for our new members. Two books that I read as a kid. My father said, these are great. Why don't you have a look at these and see what you can learn from it? Service is My Business and Adventure in Service. And this is really what our club focuses on, so I'll probably scan these and make them available in complete form for our members in our little library. But that's when things in my life began to change, and I noticed how Rotary was having a strong influence on my father's activities and his time away. We knew that he was in Rotary, but it was still a lunch club, so we didn't miss him as much until, I would say, when did he join the Tuesday evening club? That had to be in the mid-60s. So for the first several years, he was in this lunch club, also making perfect attendance. But the way things changed around the house is we got our first rotary phone. Ha 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 ha. You might want to hit the sound effects there too, Rushton. You can throw in some laughter. And then I noticed when we were outside, we had a rotary mower for cutting the grass. We got a Mazda with a rotary engine. Hey, where'd it go? The image is gone. Oh no. I don't know why that didn't transfer, but you'd see an old Mazda there with rotary hubcaps. Gee, it must have been a bad translation from PowerPoint over to PDF. And my dad would host what we call the fireside chats, and this is where we would bring new and prospective members together, a small group of about 5 or 6 gentlemen. Back then, women weren't in Rotary. That didn't happen until the mid-'80s. And they had a film strip and scripts, and I was the one that ran the film strip projector. Every time this is before the tapes that they brought out later, every time that would beep, I would advance it, just as you recall in high school or elementary school with the film strip presentations. But Dad would say, advance the slide, and I would learn all about Rotary. And at that time, we only had the 4 avenues of service. They've since added youth services, but club, community, international, and vocational. So I could be anywhere, and Dad would mention, why don't you tell my friend a little bit about Rotary? And I would just rattle off the things that I had learned, and it stuck. So growing up, my dad had involvement in many different activities, and I would tag along. My sisters and I would go, and Mom would be there. I would help flip pancakes at pancake breakfast and help serve the pancakes and serve the meals and clean up. One of the times after a pancake breakfast, one of the members had brought some steaks over. He was a caterer, and he brought some steaks over and says, "We're going to have a great lunch after this." And broke them out. We fired them up, and it was fabulous. And somebody said, "You know, I bet we could sell steaks and make more money with less effort than selling pancakes." And that started a great string of what were called our steak fries. We were known far and wide for this. We had Rotarians coming to, we were up to about 200 steaks served at the steak fries. It was a great fundraiser for us, brought in about $6,000 to $7,000 a year. We also had holiday parties for those with special needs. We would bring the young adults and children over from the school for the mentally challenged, and they would have a holiday party on us. Santa would be there. They'd have a gift package. We'd serve them a pasta meal and ice cream, and it was really good. It's something that they look forward to year after year after year. And I grew up with these folks, and I got to know them. You don't really have a tight friendship because they have their own things going on in their life, and you've got your own. But once a year, we'd get together and see each other again, and we'd check in with the family. And how's your child doing? How's your son or daughter doing? And over the years, I've actually seen them in the obituaries. It really tugs at you that you knew that you brought some happiness into a life of challenge for them. One of the best things were our holiday fundraiser nut packings, when the caterer, and we also had a fellow who was in the grocery distribution business and had some grocery stores, and they would bring in big bags of roasted mixed nuts, and we'd pack these all up and then sell them at holiday gatherings. And that sort of fell by the wayside when we realized that we were eating so much of it while we were packing it that we weren't making as big of a profit, but it was still fun. And then when Rotary started Youth Exchange, we were the very first Youth Exchange host family for our club. By this time, my dad was in the evening club. We had a lovely young woman from Brazil that came to live with us. She stayed with us for about half the year, 2 parts, the first 3 months and then the third 3 months. And that was a great experience as well. Over the years, we also had a young girl from France that stayed for about 3 months with us, and a boy from Holland who was with us for 3 months, and who up until about 12 years ago, we still kept in touch, but we've lost each other. I'm still looking for him on the internet, but we haven't found him. Rotary introduced a summer exchange program for their youth, for Rotarians' children. They didn't really want Rotarians' children to go on the full year program because it was depriving somebody else of a scholarship, and there was a question of whether that was really appropriate. So they came up with a summer program with Scandinavia. You can see here I am on the right side in the striped shirt, still looking on the corpulent side as I am today, but with much more hair. I ended up going to Finland, and my friend Karen Peduzzi, who was still a great friend, she went to Sweden. First, the Scandinavian kids came and lived with our family, us and our families, for 3 months, or not 3 weeks in the summer, and then we went back and lived at their family's house for 3 weeks. Really an interesting time. I loved that experience. In college, and because we didn't have high school Interact, and I don't even know if Interact was around then. Maybe, I think it might have started in the 60s, but it hadn't yet flowed up to our district level. But when I was at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida, I helped charter a Rotaract chapter. Unfortunately, I was busy with something the day the photo was taken, and again, you can see that they didn't even proofread the headline, the Rotaract Club. It's funny because, it was about 6 years ago, I received the magazine from the Alumni Association of what's going on at Miami again, and they had an article about the Rotaract Club being chartered at the University of Miami, finally. And I wrote to them and sent them this photo from the yearbook and said, well, it wasn't really finally. It's that it got started but never got continued. So they were happy to see that as well. But on August 3rd, 1982, I officially became a Rotarian, joining the Girard Liberty Rotary Club, which met on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Usually the meetings were done about 7:15, but it was held at a restaurant with a bar, so we would hang out and just continue the Rotary Fellowship. And Great meals, great people, small club of around 40 to 50. Now they're probably around 18, 19. They've really had some challenges in Youngstown, Ohio area, keeping some of the smaller clubs going. And I've had perfect attendance ever since. As I said, it began as a family tradition. My father died in 2005. And at that time, he had over 45 years of perfect attendance. He was traveling all over the world. Our club had a fantastic collection of banners that my dad would exchange and collect as he was traveling. And so we had well over 100 club banners from makeup meetings. When I had the chance to travel to Japan, I went to a Rotary Club meeting, and Hong Kong, went to a meeting there, and just had an outstanding time. Didn't always understand what was going on, but it was really fun to go and visit. And in the club, when you're a new member, of course, they put you on the board, and I became president in 1989-90, which was actually 20 years to the term that my father had served as president of the same club. So that was really a nice accomplishment. In '92, the club honored me by naming me a Paul Harris Fellow. They had a tradition. Not only could you contribute toward your own Paul Harris Fellowship, but once a year, the club allocated $1,000 out of the dues that were collected to name a Paul Harris Fellow for the club. And I was selected as that one to be named for the 75th anniversary of the Paul Harris Fellows. And that was really quite a distinction. Look at those glasses. Oh my goodness. Look like Fearless Fly. And you can see here I wear my lapel pins with pride. I have mine on today. Now, I don't think that suit fits too much anymore. That's about, how old was I there? Probably in my mid-30s. So I've been in Rotary, as I said, a long time, and I've served in many ways. I've been an avenue of all four avenues of service, and actually all five now, because the youth service is official. I served in Ohio as the club youth exchange chair for 7 years. So I've got youth exchange friends all over the world, even beyond high school when I met them there, but as the club chair. So if I wanted to go into Germany and visit with somebody, I can call or send a text, an email, and we'll get together. Served as president of 2 different clubs. Newsletter editor in Ohio for 13 years. I actually had to leave the club to get through that. Served as a governor's assistant. I was on the district youth exchange team in helping to place students coming in as well as select those that would be going out. My favorite activity was working with the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards at the district level, both in 6650 and in 5160. In 6650, I showed up at the very first one, first RILA, that we were holding with my camera and video camcorder, intending just to document it for them. And what happened, one of the facilitators came over as I was talking to one of the coordinators, and he said, I'm not feeling really well. I think I'm coming down with the flu. I can stick around if you need me to, but if you can find somebody else. And she looked at me, she says, have you ever facilitated a group before? I said, absolutely. So what about leadership groups? Oh yes, in high school and college. She says, great. Take Bruce's manual, stay 1 page ahead of the kids. So not only did I photograph and videotape, but I served as a group facilitator, and that kept me going then for the next 13 years in Ohio. When I came out to the club at Rossmore, I joined there. One of the second or third meetings was the district governor, and he talked about RILA, but they needed people at the district level because their top 2 people had just moved to Arizona. They got relocated and worked. So right away I found myself as the registrar of the local RILA here, which we hold up in Hayfork. If you want to know where Hayfork is, take I-5 all the way north to Reading, hang a left, and go about 3 hours on really curvy roads in the middle of Trinity County. Absolutely beautiful homestead farm in the middle of the national forest up there. Great place to have kids for a whole week and take them through a tremendous leadership and personal insight experience. So I did that for about 6 years here before I stepped down when I transitioned over to the E-Club. I've served as an Interact Club advisor. We started one finally in 6650 as a multi-school club, the first multi-school club in that district. And then I also was a Paul Harris Society member here, which was contributing new Paul Harris each year for several years. So a lot has changed in the 55 years that I've been affiliated with Rotary. I've been in the family since age 3, and you can see how the face is pretty much the same, but all the surrounding hair seems to just shift as a bit. And if I live to see 100 years old, maybe this is what I'll look like, and I'll have lived and seen another 42 years of Rotary. So those of you who are new, take advantage of everything that Rotary has to offer, and get into it with all your heart, with all your spirit. The service projects are going to be a little challenging for our club because we're an E-club, so reach out to those local clubs. The Terra clubs is what we call them. Find out, what are you guys doing? In fact, one of the things I'd recommend is ask to be put on the newsletter. We all should be put on the newsletter of the surrounding clubs, Sunnyvale and Milpitas and all of those. I'm on the ones for Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, Alamo, Moraga, La Marinda, and I see what their service projects are. It's easy to just show up and volunteer. You have your little Rotary shirt. There are some that say Rotarians at Work with the big Rotary wheel on the back, and we have a blast. So this is where you can get your service hours in and really be of service to the world, which is what Rotary is all about. There you go. Those are my prepared remarks. So hit that applause.
Very, very cool, Shags. Awesome. So,
Thanks.
in looking back over like a long time with Rotary, one of the things that we've got in our club, of course, is 16 people who are in their first 5 weeks of Rotary, right? Mm-hmm. Is there something about like a particular service activity, maybe something local, or it might be something that was kind of put in motion by the Rotary Foundation? So big scale, small scale, either. It kind of stands out as a moment where it particularly hit you, kind of what Rotary can be for people.
Yes, indeed, and I have something to share on that as well. Let me just take it to full screen first, and then I will share it. View full screen, and this is a program that was started at the Ohio Club. Now I've got it ready for screen sharing. My mouse is a little finicky today, the touchpad. And this is a newspaper article from the Youngstown Vindicator in March of 2010. Let's see if I can expand it just a bit. Nope. There we go. And this shows, when you do the math, we had sent 200,000 pounds of clothing and medical supplies each year to people around the world, and this is a program that was in its 28th year. So we started a longer time ago. It was begun by a fellow who was a retired superintendent at the local schools, S.P. Wright. He got the idea of starting a clothing drive and approaching physicians and hospitals, taking some of the medical supplies that they were no longer using, some of the medications that were coming up on expiration, and collecting them and sending them to the poorest of the poor, people in Appalachia, people in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, wherever there was a need. Indian reservations, Native American reservations, rather. We want to be PC here. And any place where there might have been a natural disaster, a flood or a tornado, hurricane came through, and there was a need to get stuff down to people. So he got this idea, and it grew. The district loved it. It became a district project. It got Rotary Foundation money support, and we ended up sending over 200 and some tons around all over the world. One of the things that we had in Youngstown, we still have it there, is an air reserve base. They at that time had a full wing, which was 20-some planes, I believe, C-130s. So whenever the military was going somewhere, SP would have them take a load of stuff over and drop it off. It worked out really well. I want to fast forward to, this was a time when Mother Teresa was visiting, I think it was at the UN, and his son, Dr. Paul Wright, he's a retired cardiologist, he was in New York. I think that's where his practice was, and she was suffering with some sort of a a situation, and this is also from the Rotarian in June of 1995 about the program. Here's SP on the left, and Donnie Santisi, he's the one that had the trucking company, the produce company, and two people that were receiving things in Appalachia. Well, Mother Teresa had a little cardiac event, and he went to treat her, and in the course of talking, she asked him, he mentioned to her, rather, about his dad's project. Well, she was intrigued, and SP asked Paul, do you think we can get something over to her mission in India? And, well, one of the things was that the U.S. had never been allowed to fly any military aircraft into Indian airspace. And you can see here, just by this time, we had over 130 metric tons. Well, when this story came out, I wrote to the Rotarian. It was published 2 months later, because that was in June or 3 months later, June or July, 2 months later, that SP was actually a major player in getting a C-130 not only to fly over Indian airspace on its way to some training flights in Thailand, but they landed and delivered a whole C-130 full of materials to Mother Teresa's mission. It's a first in U.S.-India military cooperation, saving them, as you can see, 20 flight hours and 2,200 miles. So this all came from a very simple idea that one person had of how to put Rotary in action and be of service to people all around the world. And here we were, a small club of 30, 40 people managing this program. And it was really a powerful force to be dealt with, because we got things where hardly anybody else could get materials, all because Rotary can get things done.
Very, very cool. I love the getting the cooperation happening between India and the United States as a result of that. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, yep. Also we've got the Peanut Gallery down here, of which I am a proud part. So we've got Mark and Tracy and Chris, and wave at me if you're kind of ready with your question. All right, Chris, jump in.
Shags, any thoughts on our club, what we can do, what everybody can do as a service club, what we can do as a service club, what can be our project, what we're noted for? I realize that we're all over the planet, but any thoughts on what we might do?
Not off the top, but I think it would most likely be effectively involving technology. So if we can help introduce in our local areas programs that would revolve around education with youth and technology, that could be a very powerful force.
Very cool. Yeah, matter of fact, our members are going to start seeing things. Actually, they probably saw something in this week's program as it is broadcast, right? About some of the things coming up, both locally here in the Silicon Valley and some efforts that we're going to be doing. So March is really our month to start launching that stuff. And Martin Fox, our service chair, will have some good info on that as well. Very cool. All right, Tracy or Mark, you have something to toss in.
Well, I can pick up on that a little bit more before Mark asks his question, and that's
okay.
If we have connections with companies that manufacture electronics, you know that once it's on the shelf, it's obsolete. So if there's anything that they're pulling off the shelves, rather than trash it or take it apart and recycle, if we can get that material into the hands of others that need it, it may be an old computer to the manufacturer, but it's a new computer to somebody else. Right. Mark's muted, so I can't hear his question.
There. All right, now I'm back. I just didn't. There was a pause there, and I didn't know, Shags, if there was going to be a continuation there or not. I'm always being an educator, looking at youth and youth programs as we move forward, and I look at the Interact, and the first thing that kind of jumps out at me is here we are as an e-Rotary Club, and I'm wondering if you've ever heard of an e-Interact, where we could actually become the platform for kids with a common cause that want to gather and move forward from there.
I don't know if there is one, but there should be, and we should be the club to form it. I also think that we can be the impetus for an online RILA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, but on an ongoing basis, where we get together as a meet-out or a hangout, or even something larger, a different platform that may allow several hundred to come in and experience a little bit of leadership. It's not going to be as much hands-on, hands around, seeing each other, but we can still get a lot of effective information around on diversity training and sensitivity, on communication skills, leadership development, club continuity. That's the most important thing, is where you get your officers lined up for the next several years, so that even as kids graduate and move on, they will have a good firm basis for club leadership continuing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Tracy, why don't you ask the last question and we'll finish this up.
Sure. So, being someone very new to Rotary, I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about the best ways to connect with local clubs. I know we have a couple here in my community. I presented to one of them within the last year and a half or so. Yeah, what is the, like, you know, I belong to this club, but then what can you do to connect with other clubs effectively, and how much do you get involved with other clubs when you're part of this club? And I don't know if that's a silly question, but I'm new, so I'm just kind of wondering these things.
No, it's a great question, Tracy, and it's really for the benefit of all of our members who are so new to Rotary, and you just show up. It's that simple. To do a makeup, and you don't even need to do it as a makeup, just go as a visiting Rotarian. Now, you may have to pay for the lunch or the dinner, because that's also part of their program. You might even get a little fine. That's part of their program. They sometimes call them happy dollars, or they'll poke fun at some of the people and say that'll be $1. But just show up and let them know that you're a member of an E-Club, and if they haven't heard about an E-Club, that you'd be happy to come back and make a presentation and actually show them one of our meetings online. I remember doing that even before I had joined the E-Club. Before I even moved to California, I had attended online while I was traveling a club in India. And I got back to the Youngstown, Ohio club and said, this would be a great program. So I showed them how to attend a meeting online. It wasn't nearly as fancy as ours are, but it was still an interesting program. So while you're there, let them know you can do a program on what is an E-Club and show them snippets from our meeting, as well as let them know that you are available to help volunteer. So please put me on your mailing list, and if I'm able to make your service projects and help as a volunteer, I will be there.
Very cool. Great advice, and probably a great spot to finish up. One thing for all of our new members and even our veterans to know is that if you go to Rotary.org, one of the things you'll see in the upper right is a little thing called Club Finder, and then that way you can find out where clubs in your area meet, what day, what time, and that kind of sets you up, I think, to be able to be like, okay, you know, next week I'm gonna drop in on these folks and say hello. And, you know, just smile a lot and represent the club well, right? That kind of stuff.
There's also a phone app.
Say it again.
There's also a phone app you can get at Google Play or on Apple, on where Rotary Club meet. I think it's called Club Finder as well.
Cool. Lots of possibilities. Well, y'all, we've reached that point. Is it in? Hope it in.
Oh, you're too funny.
That's me playing with the sound effects. At any rate, so members and guests, thank you again for joining the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. We're very happy to be able to share the kinds of things that are happening in our young club, but also with Rotary across Silicon Valley, District 5170, and around the world, because you know it's just a heck of a lot better to be spending time with people who are interested in changing the world for the better than it is to be watching the news and hearing lots of things about terrible stuff. So there you go. So make sure, everybody, that at the bottom of this page you fill out the little survey saying I attended. We really want to be able to celebrate, you know, when people come and visit. Last week we had people from Kenya and Jamaica join us, which I thought was really cool. And we want to know. We want to know where you're from, and kind of what you think of our club, and even suggestions you have. We can always improve. So with that, everybody, leave a comment at the bottom, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Everybody, let's give Shags one more big hand. Yay! Awesome. And with that, we will call an end to the broadcast. Everybody, take care.
Bye-bye.